Full story. My family invited me to Christmas but refused to let me stay overnight. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Silent Wars. I'm so glad you're here with us today. We've got a heartfelt family story coming your way that's full of unexpected twists and real emotions. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. But fair warning, this story might make you want to call your own family just to say, "Hey, I love you." So get ready for some laughs, some feels, and maybe even a little surprise. Before we dive in, if you enjoy stories like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to Silent Wars so you never miss out on our latest videos. Also, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city and local time in the comments below so we can connect from all over the country. Now, grab your favorite cozy drink, settle into your comfy spot, and get ready to relax. We're about to share a story that reminds us how complicated, but also how beautiful, family can be. Let's jump right in. Claire Mitchell stared at the elegant envelope in her hands, the embossed gold lettering shimmering softly under the warm glow of her Seattle apartment's reading lamp. After years of barely exchanging words with her family, especially during the holidays, she hadn't expected to receive an invitation to the annual Mitchell family Christmas party. Yet here it was, a beautifully designed card inviting her to join the festivities at her parents' sprawling waterfront estate. Her heart fluttered with a strange mixture of excitement and hesitation. Could this be a genuine olive branch after years of cold shoulders and whispered doubts? Or was it just another layer of complicated family politics wrapped in festive paper? But then she noticed the fine print. Not in the card itself, but in a separate curt message attached to the invitation. Please be advised, overnight accommodations will not be provided. The words hit her like a splash of icy water. It was clear she was welcome for the party, but not welcome enough to stay. Not welcome enough to be part of the intimate moments that made a family holiday feel like home. Claire's mind raced with conflicting emotions, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. Yet, an undercurrent of doubt crept in, whispering that this invitation might be more about appearances than affection. After all, for years, she had been the family's black sheep, the daughter who left a promising legal career behind to chase a risky tech startup, the one they quietly wrote off as a lost cause. Invitations had been withheld in the past, Christmas dinners had been celebrated without her, and conversations at family gatherings had often skirted around her accomplishments as if they were uncomfortable truths best ignored. Now, standing at the crossroads of longing and skepticism, Claire grappled with the question: was this cold condition a genuine step toward reconciliation, or just a way to keep her at arm's length? Was she being offered a place at the table, or simply a stage prop for the evening? The mix of excitement, confusion, and anxiety churned inside her, a tempest of hope shadowed by years of rejection. She traced her finger along the edge of the invitation, feeling the weight of it not just as paper, but as a symbol of all the unspoken tensions between her and the family she once thought she belonged to. The night ahead promised joy, but also uncertainty, a chance to rewrite the story, or yet another reminder of where she stood in the eyes of those she called kin. The Mitchell family Christmas party was everything Claire had anticipated and dreaded, a dazzling affair set against the backdrop of her parents' sprawling waterfront mansion in Seattle. Twinkling fairy lights wrapped around towering fir trees, casting a warm glow over the festive crowd. The scent of pine mingled with the rich aroma of roasted chestnuts and freshly baked pies. Music floated softly from the grand piano in the main hall, where her relatives mingled, their laughter ringing through the air like a familiar, yet distant melody. But Claire wasn't among them. Instead, she found herself seated alone in a modest guest lounge tucked away on the opposite side of the house. The room was cozy enough, a leather armchair by the fireplace, soft blankets draped over the sofa, but the silence was deafening. From her secluded vantage point, she could see the flickering light spilling out from the larger rooms, catching glimpses of animated conversations, heartfelt toasts, and the shared smiles that defined a family holiday. Yet, she remained on the outside, an observer to a warmth she yearned for but couldn't quite reach. Each burst of laughter from the main hall seemed to echo against the walls around her, amplifying the ache of isolation. It wasn't just the physical distance that stung, it was the unspoken message behind it. The subtle but unmistakable divide that had shadowed Claire for years, the one that told her she was still not fully part of this family's story. The same family that had once celebrated her sister's milestones with unreserved joy now treated her presence as a tolerated obligation rather than a welcome embrace. As she sipped her untouched glass of wine, Claire's mind wandered back to memories of past holidays, moments filled with hope that someday she would belong without conditions or caveats. The guest lounge, with its quiet corners and muted light, now felt like a symbol of all those broken promises, a place where she could be seen but not truly known. The loneliness crept in, weaving threads of doubt and fear. Was this how it would always be? A peripheral presence, on the margins of the family's joy? The thought weighed heavily on her heart, but beneath the sadness burned a quiet resolve. This night, despite its solitude, marked the beginning of something new, one where Claire's worth wouldn't be measured by proximity at a party, but by the power of her own story. Claire sat quietly in the dimly lit guest lounge, her mind still tangled in the bittersweet emotions of the evening. The distant hum of festive chatter drifted through the walls, but her attention was suddenly snapped back by the sharp vibration of her phone resting on the side table. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from her assistant, Maya. "Claire, just got confirmation. We secured the multi-million-dollar contract. The deal ties directly to the Mitchell family's main supplier, who's been struggling to stay afloat. This is huge." The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. Her heart quickened, a surge of hope and determination flooding through her veins. This was more than just a business win. It was a game changer, an opportunity to rewrite the story her family had long ignored. For years, she had been the underdog, dismissed as the rebellious daughter chasing an unrealistic dream in tech entrepreneurship. Now, her company had landed a contract worth millions that directly impacted the family's faltering enterprise. The revelation ignited a spark of curiosity within Claire, tempered by an undercurrent of tension. She realized the power she now wielded was tangible, a leverage that could shift the balance in her favor. The same family that had excluded her from the warmth of the holiday gathering was unknowingly dependent on the success she was crafting behind the scenes. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reread the message. The contract was with one of the key suppliers to the Mitchell family business, an entity desperately clinging to survival amid financial woes. Claire's company had not only secured the deal, but was positioned to be an indispensable partner in revitalizing the family's operations. It was a twist of fate that felt both poetic and strategic. Yet, with this newfound leverage came a complex mix of emotions, anticipation, excitement, but also the weight of responsibility. Could she navigate this opportunity without further fracturing her already strained relationships? Would this contract be the bridge to reconciliation or the final wedge driving her family apart? As the party's laughter echoed faintly beyond the lounge door, Claire made a silent vow. This contract was more than business, it was a chance to redefine her place in the family's legacy, to transform from the overlooked outcast into a decisive force they could no longer ignore. Her gaze lifted toward the frosted windows, where Seattle's winter night shimmered with distant city lights. In that moment, Claire felt a powerful resolve settle in her chest. Tonight was not just about survival, it was the beginning of her ascendancy. The atmosphere in the Mitchell estate was electric, a tension hanging just beneath the surface of the glittering Christmas celebration. Claire sat quietly, the weight of the recent news about the contract pressing heavily on her mind. She was moments away from making a decision that would forever alter her place in the family's world. Just as she reached for her phone to initiate the cancellation of the multi-million-dollar deal tied to her family's faltering business, the entire mansion suddenly went dark. The power outage was instantaneous and total. Lights flickered once, twice, then extinguished, plunging the vast estate into near-complete darkness. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as the festive sounds were swallowed by an eerie silence. The sudden blackout forced the guests to gather in the main hall, their faces illuminated only by the soft, unpredictable glow of dozens of candles hastily lit around the room. Claire felt a shiver run down her spine, not from the chill of the cold Seattle winter night outside, but from the overwhelming symbolism of the moment. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the walls, creating an almost surreal tableau that mirrored the emotional darkness she had carried for years. This blackout wasn't just a technical failure, it was a physical manifestation of the fractures within her family's bonds, fragile, flickering, and uncertain. Whispers turned into anxious questions. Some guests fumbled for their phones to use their flashlight apps. Others clung to one another for comfort. Yet amid the chaos, Claire remained composed, her mind sharpening with clarity. The darkness heightened the suspense, the gravity of her impending move intensified by the oppressive silence. She could almost hear the beating of her own heart echoing in the stillness, reminding her of every moment she had been sidelined, dismissed, or ignored. As the minutes dragged on, the storm outside intensified, winds rattling the windows and snow swirling violently against the glass. The family she had once longed to fully belong to now seemed as distant and unreachable as the lights outside, flickering but out of reach. In this intimate, candlelit moment, Claire felt the weight of every fractured relationship. The silence was a stark reminder that, despite the festive facade, their connection was tenuous at best. But the darkness also stirred something fierce inside her, a determination not to be overshadowed or kept in the margins any longer. As the power finally hummed back to life, the room brightened, but the echoes of that brief darkness lingered. Claire knew that this night, much like the blackout, marked a turning point, one where shadows would be confronted, and the true strength of her family ties and her own resolve would be tested like never before. During the flickering candlelight of the unexpected blackout, Claire felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, an unspoken tension that stretched beyond the usual holiday politeness. As guests whispered nervously and sought comfort in the dim glow, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was her younger cousin, Ethan, someone who had always been distant and somewhat dismissive of Claire's ambitions. Yet tonight, something in his eyes betrayed a different story. Ethan approached cautiously, his voice low as he pulled Claire aside to a quiet corner of the room. "I've been watching how things have been handled in this family," he began, a hint of frustration threading his words. "There's favoritism, sure, but worse, there's mismanagement, hidden debts, and risks nobody wants to admit. It's not just about who gets the best gifts or the best seat at the table. This family is on the edge of something serious, and people are too afraid or stubborn to face it." Claire's heart quickened. Ethan's words were a revelation, a crack in the carefully maintained facade of family unity. For years, she had felt isolated, dismissed as the black sheep, while her family seemed to ignore the growing financial instability threatening their legacy. Now, this unexpected ally was handing her a key, a glimpse behind the curtain, revealing vulnerabilities she had suspected but never confirmed. "I don't want to see this family fall apart," Ethan confessed quietly. "But I also don't trust most of them to fix it. You're the only one I believe can make a real difference." His sudden openness was surprising, given their past cold exchanges, but it ignited a cautious hope within Claire. For the first time in years, she wasn't entirely alone in this battle. Yet, with this newfound alliance came complexities. Ethan's information was sensitive, potentially explosive. Claire realized she had to tread carefully. One wrong move could expose Ethan to backlash or deepen the family's fractures. Trust had to be balanced with discretion, especially amidst the swirling suspicions and power plays that marked the family's holiday gathering. As the power flickered back on and the room slowly brightened, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but now she had a companion who understood the stakes. Together, they could challenge the status quo, uncover the truth, and perhaps rebuild what had long been broken. In that candlelit corner, amid whispers and flickering shadows, a fragile but powerful alliance was forged, one that might just change everything. As the Christmas party wore on and the flicker of candlelight gave way to steady electric glow, Claire's sense of cautious optimism was shattered by an unexpected digital intrusion. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message unlike any she had received before. It was anonymous, its tone chilling and unequivocal. "Back off, Claire. Stop meddling in family business or face consequences that will ruin everything you've built. Your reputation, your company, both will be exposed and destroyed." A cold wave of dread washed over her. Someone within her own family had been listening, monitoring her private calls and texts with Maya, her trusted assistant. The realization that her movements were no longer private struck her like a betrayal deeper than any she had experienced. This was more than just a warning. It was a calculated threat designed to intimidate her into silence. Claire's fingers trembled momentarily as she stared at the glowing screen. She had known this fight wouldn't be easy. Family politics were as ruthless as any corporate boardroom, but the undercurrent of fear injected by this message forced her to steel herself in a new way. The stakes were higher than ever. Not only was her business at risk, but so was her personal reputation, the very foundation of the empire she had spent years building from scratch. Yet, despite the anxiety that clawed at her, Claire refused to succumb to panic. Instead, she took a deep breath and composed herself. Every move from this point forward would have to be meticulously planned and strategically executed. She couldn't afford any missteps or rash decisions. The threat was a stark reminder that the path she had chosen was fraught with danger, but also underscored the importance of perseverance. Her mind raced through contingencies, securing her communications, limiting sensitive conversations, and gathering evidence that could expose whoever was behind the intimidation. Claire knew that responding too aggressively might escalate the situation, but ignoring the threat could invite disaster. It was a precarious balance, one that tested not only her business acumen, but her emotional resilience. In that tense moment, she realized the magnitude of what she was up against. This was no longer just a family dispute. It was a battle for control, trust, and survival. But Claire was no stranger to adversity. Drawing strength from the years of rejection and struggle, she resolved to meet this challenge head-on, knowing that her silence was not an option. The message had injected fear, yes, but also an unwavering determination. Claire understood that to protect everything she had worked for, she had to stay composed, outthink her opponents, and be ready for whatever came next. As the storm outside intensified, Claire stood by the frosted window of the guest house, watching thick snowflakes swirl wildly in the bitter Seattle wind. The snowfall had come faster and heavier than anyone had anticipated, already piling up over 8 inches and turning the streets into impassable stretches of white. What had started as a festive evening full of potential had transformed into a night of forced solitude and reflection. Claire had just confronted her family, shaking the very foundation of their carefully guarded legacy. She had made her stand, asserting her power and independence, but the emotional scars ran deep. Now, stranded miles from the main house, still physically and emotionally separated from the celebration, she faced the biting cold and silence alone. The guest house, once a simple accommodation, felt more like a fortress of exile, walls closing in on her isolation. Wrapped tightly in a thick wool blanket, Claire sat beside the flickering fireplace, its weak warmth barely cutting through the chill that settled in her bones. The howling wind outside echoed the storm raging within her, a mixture of pain, anger, and resolve. The cold winter night was a harsh reminder of all the times she had felt left out, overlooked, and dismissed by the very people who should have been her closest allies. Yet, amid the solitude and the biting cold, something stronger emerged. The isolation forced her to confront not only the fractures within her family, but also the strength within herself. The night stretched long, offering her space to process the upheaval she had caused, and to envision a future built on her own terms, free from the shadows of old grievances and false expectations. Claire's thoughts turned to the path ahead. The snowstorm that trapped her was a metaphor for the obstacles she would face in reclaiming her identity and power. But like the unyielding winter, she knew she too could endure and emerge transformed. The stillness around her sharpened her focus, the silence amplifying her determination. As dawn approached, the snow continued to blanket the world outside, promising a fresh start beneath its pristine surface. Claire rose, feeling a quiet confidence replacing the loneliness. This night of forced isolation had become a crucible, forging her resolve to build a legacy not defined by family acceptance, but by her own vision and strength. By the time the first light of dawn crept over Seattle, the reverberations of Claire Mitchell's bold actions had begun to ripple through the Mitchell family and their business empire. News of her decision to cancel the multi-million-dollar contract had leaked intentionally or not, and it sent shockwaves through the tight-knit, image-conscious clan. What was once the overlooked, dismissed daughter had now become a formidable force in the family's corporate world, wielding influence with a quiet, unyielding power. Claire's move was not merely a business maneuver, it was a statement. She had taken control of a narrative that had long been dominated by doubt and dismissal, transforming it into one of undeniable authority. Her ability to leverage her company's success to challenge the very foundation of her family's financial legacy stunned many. Whispers of grudging respect began to replace the earlier undercurrents of skepticism and condescension. For years, Claire had played the role of the outsider, the tech entrepreneur, who had dared to defy expectations by walking away from a traditional path. Her family had written her off, not recognizing the quiet determination and strategic mind she nurtured behind closed doors. But tonight, as board members, relatives, and business partners alike acknowledged her impact, it was clear that Claire's time had come. The family's shock was palpable. Conversations once dominated by dismissive remarks gave way to tentative discussions acknowledging Claire's pivotal role in securing the future of their business ventures. Even those who had resisted her rise could not deny the tangible results she had delivered. This newfound respect, however, came on Claire's terms. She refused to be a pawn or a token in their game of legacy and appearances. Instead, Claire embraced her role as an architect of change, a leader who had earned her place through resilience, vision, and decisive action. Her victory was not loud or boastful, it was measured and strategic, a reflection of the strength that had carried her through years of marginalization. As the morning sun illuminated the city skyline, Claire allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction. The journey from exclusion to empowerment had been arduous, but the outcome was a testament to her unwavering belief in herself. The Mitchell family might have underestimated her for too long, but now they faced a reality they could no longer ignore. This was more than a business win. It was the reclamation of her identity, and the dawn of a new chapter where Claire Mitchell stood not as an afterthought, but as a leader shaping her own legacy. Life often tests us in unexpected ways, especially when those closest to us doubt our potential or fail to recognize our worth. Claire's journey teaches a powerful lesson. True success isn't defined by the approval or acceptance of others, even family, but by unwavering belief in oneself and the courage to forge your own path. For many adults navigating careers, relationships, and personal growth, the challenge isn't just external obstacles, but the emotional weight of feeling overlooked or underestimated. Claire's story reminds us that being sidelined doesn't mean we lack value. Sometimes, the greatest breakthroughs come from moments of isolation and rejection, where we find the strength to rise beyond expectations. Another key message is the power of strategic patience and quiet resilience. Claire didn't seek loud validation or immediate recognition. Instead, she focused on building her capabilities and seizing opportunities with calm confidence. This approach not only changed her family's perception, but reshaped her own identity, transforming from an underestimated outsider into a respected leader. The story also underscores the importance of standing firm in the face of intimidation and fear. Threats and setbacks may arise, especially when we challenge established norms or confront difficult truths. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that our resolve is forged. Maintaining composure and strategic clarity under pressure is essential for long-term success. Finally, Claire's experience encourages us to redefine what family and belonging truly mean. Sometimes it's less about blood ties and more about those who support our growth and respect our journey. Embracing this perspective can empower us to create fulfilling lives aligned with our values and vision. In essence, the greatest victory is not simply proving others wrong, but proving to yourself that your dreams and worth are real. As we come to the close of Claire's journey, take a moment to breathe it all in. Life doesn't always hand us the easiest roads, but it's in those quiet struggles that we discover our true strength. Success isn't just about the numbers or titles, it's about resilience, grace, and the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path feels uncertain. Remember, you're never alone in facing challenges. Every step, every setback, every small victory is part of a bigger story yours. So hold on to hope, trust in yourself, and know that sometimes the greatest power lies in simply believing you can rise. If Claire's story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Silent Wars for more inspiring journeys like hers. I'd also love to hear where you're watching from. Drop your city and local time in the comments below so we can share this moment together. Now, as the last light softly fades, let this be a gentle reminder: your story matters. Whisper it to yourself tonight, quiet, steady, and true. Thank you for being here with me. Until next time.